You ever move somewhere thinking you finally made it, like you've crossed some invisible finish line in life, only to realize you just stepped right into the lion's den? That's exactly how it felt when I left the city and bought my dream house in a quiet little subdivision called Cedar Grove. After years of sirens and street noise, I wanted peace, a yard, a porch swing, and nights where the loudest thing I'd hear was a cricket choir. The first week was pure bliss: sunsets over the cul-de-sac, coffee on the porch, friendly waves from neighbors who all seemed picture perfect. Then came my introduction to the local HOA president, Patricia Wynn. Patricia strutted over one afternoon while I was watering my hydrangeas, wearing pearls and heels like she was walking a red carpet instead of a lawn. Without a hello, she pointed that sharp French manicured finger at my mailbox and said, "That's non-compliant." I blinked at her. "Excuse me," she sniffed. "Section 5B, heritage bronze only. Yours is black. You have 7 days before fines begin." Then she spun around and marched off, leaving divots in my grass. That was my welcome to Cedar Grove death by rulebook. I didn't know it yet, but that woman would drag me through one of the craziest chapters of my life. At first I played along. I bought the stupid bronze mailbox, rolled my trash cans behind the fence like I was hiding contraband, even coiled my hose into a perfect spiral. I thought maybe if I kept my head down, she'd move on to someone else. Then the packages started disappearing. Nothing big at first: filters for the HVAC, a set of drill bits. Amazon said they'd been delivered, but every time I got home, the porch was empty. I figured fine, maybe a porch pirate got lucky. But when it happened again and again, I started getting suspicious. And the irony didn't escape me. I was the police chief of this city, and I couldn't even keep my own mail safe. So I installed one of those fancy doorbell cameras, 1080p night vision motion alerts, the whole 9 yards. I even tested it by dancing in front of the lens just to make sure it caught everything. The next time I ordered something, just a set of mugs, I watched it live on my phone from work. I saw the mailman drop it off at 2:14 p.m., clear as day. But when I got home, the porch was empty again. The camera showed nothing after the drop-off. No one walking up, no cars stopping by. It was like the thing vanished into thin air. I spent a whole weekend repositioning that camera, convinced there had to be a blind spot. Then I ordered something more sentimental, a framed photo from my academy graduation. It disappeared too. That's when I started watching the mailman. He was an older guy, gray hair, tired eyes, the kind of man who looked like he'd been carrying the world's mail since Vietnam. One day I worked from home, coffee in hand, peering out the dining room window when he pulled up. He sorted through his bag, walked toward my house, then veered right across the street to Patricia's. My jaw clenched. I watched him hand her a small box, the same size as the one I was expecting. She glanced at it, smiled that smug, syrupy smile, and took it inside. No hesitation, no confusion, just took it. I wanted to march right over there and let her have it. But I also knew as the chief of police that I couldn't just blow up without proof. I needed evidence, something clean, undeniable. So that weekend I built a little project. I told my neighbors I was getting into bird watching and installed a large wooden birdhouse facing the oak tree near Patricia's porch. Inside was a hidden camera with a telephoto lens aimed perfectly at her front steps. I buried the cable, ran it to my garage, and set it to record every delivery. Then I waited and I baited. I'd been due for a new phone, so I ordered the latest model, tracked it for days. The moment I saw "out for delivery," my pulse spiked. I parked down the street, tablet in hand, watching the live feed. The mail truck pulled up. The man stepped out, looked around nervously, and just like clockwork, walked straight to Patricia's door. She opened it before he even rang the bell. He handed her my package. I zoomed in, my name, my address, clear as daylight on the label. She looked at it, smirked, tucked it under her arm, and shut the door. I just sat there staring at the screen, heart thudding. I had her. I gave her 10 minutes, then I went home, changed into my full dress uniform, the crisp shirt, the badge polished until it gleamed. I wasn't going over as the angry neighbor anymore. I was going as the chief of police. The sun was dipping low when I crossed the street. A few neighbors were out watering lawns, pretending not to watch. Patricia answered the door, still holding my unopened package. Her face went through about 4 emotions: surprise, annoyance, disbelief, then pure venom. "What do you want?" she snapped. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "you're holding a package that belongs to me. It was delivered here by mistake. I'd like it back." She gave this sharp laugh. "This was delivered to my address. Finders keepers, I suppose." "Patricia," I said, pointing to the label. "That's my name right there. Tampering with mail is a federal crime." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you can come here in your little costume and scare me?" she hissed. "I know who you are. You people move in and the neighborhood goes downhill." It hit me like a punch. She wasn't just power hungry, she was rotten all the way down. Before I could even reply, she yanked out her phone, dialed 911, and screamed into the receiver. "There's a man impersonating an officer on my porch. He's aggressive. He's threatening me." She actually called the police on me to my own department. I stood there in disbelief, listening as dispatch tried to process it. When the call came through my own radio report of impersonation at 122 Cedar Grove, I keyed in. "Dispatch, this is Chief 1. I'm on scene. I am the subject of that call." There was a long pause, then a shaky voice. 10-4. "Chief, units proceeding non-emergency." Patricia froze when she heard my radio respond. You could see the panic flicker behind her eyes, but instead of stopping, she doubled down. "You're all part of the same gang," she shrieked. "Fake radios, fake badges. None of this is real." It was almost sad watching her brain reject reality in real time. Then she did something unbelievable. She looked at the package, screamed, "You're not getting this," and smashed it on the concrete. The sound of shattering glass echoed down the street. My brand new phone crushed under her heel like a bug. Neighbors gasped. Right then, the patrol car pulled up 2 officers I'd personally promoted. They stepped out confused as hell to see me standing calm, while the HOA president stomped a package into dust. She pointed at me and yelled, "Arrest him! He attacked me." One look at the scene told them everything they needed to know. I just sighed and said, "Officers, this woman is under arrest for mail theft, false reporting, and destruction of property." They cuffed her right there, still screaming about her rights and her position as HOA president. Turns out that was just the tip of the iceberg. When my detectives questioned the mailman, his name was Arthur, he broke down. Patricia had been blackmailing him. She'd found out he'd had a minor accident with his mail truck months earlier and hadn't reported it. She told him unless he redirected my packages, she'd ruin his career. The poor guy was terrified. He admitted everything, and the guilt had been eating him alive. I couldn't even be mad at him. He was another one of her victims. When the HOA board met without her, the treasurer discovered massive financial discrepancies, thousands missing from community funds, fake vendor payments, even a landscaping conference in Aruba. The woman had been stealing from everyone, not just me. Once that came out, the neighborhood erupted. People who'd been silent for years finally spoke up. The lady down the street confessed she'd been fined for her kid's basketball hoop. Another guy said Patricia once threatened to tow his car for parking half an inch over the line. And just when I thought it couldn't get more absurd, she sued me from jail, claiming I'd harassed her, racially targeted her, and used my position of power to humiliate a vulnerable elderly woman. Her lawyer tried to argue that my birdhouse camera violated privacy laws. It was laughable. The city attorney filed to dismiss the case as frivolous, and the court tossed it out in a heartbeat. At her trial, the evidence was overwhelming. The jury saw the footage of her stealing the package, heard the 911 call, watched her destroy my phone, even saw the HOA's financial records. Guilty on all counts: mail theft, false reporting, property destruction, and embezzlement. When they read the verdict, she just sat there staring at nothing, like the reality had finally sunk in. She got 18 months in state prison. A few weeks later, on a bright Saturday, a pickup truck pulled up in front of my house. It was my neighbor Ryan, the quiet guy who'd always kept to himself with a bed full of lumber and concrete. He grinned and said, "Figured we'd help fix that fence she wrecked." Before I could even answer, more neighbors showed up. Mrs. Albright brought donuts. The Henderson kids brought lemonade. The whole street turned out hammering, painting, laughing like a weight had been lifted off the block. For the first time since I moved in, Cedar Grove actually felt like a community. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the new fence stood tall again, the new mail carrier, a young woman with a kind smile, walked up with a small box. "Package for you, Chief," she said. It was my replacement phone. I signed for it, looked around at my neighbors, and finally exhaled. I'd come here searching for peace, and somehow through all that madness I found it not the quiet kind, but the kind that comes when people finally stand together. So yeah, that's how I became the police chief who arrested his own HOA president. Believe me, I couldn't make that up if I tried. But here's the thing. What would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet, played along, or called her out like I did? Drop a comment below. I really want to know how you'd handle a neighbor like Patricia.